Kino pavasaris. Kovo 18, balandžio 5 dienomis visoje Lietuvoje. Didysis partneris Ergo draudimo grupė. Informaciniai partneriai TV3, 15 min žmonės.
Mūsų karta pirmoji supratusi, kaip iš lėto kenkiame gamtai. Ir vienintelė, žinanti, kad dar yra laiko ją išsaugoti. Apsaugokime mūsų visų ateitį. Ergo.
Geriausius kino pavasario filmus parodys žiūrimiausia televizija TV3. Šeštadieniais 22:40.
Festivalis Kino pavasaris jūsų namuose. Visus filmus žiūrėkite Telia televizijoje jums patogiu metu. Telia. Įdomiau tik gyvenimas.
The laws of physics. The laws of life. Laws connect everything. We think that to be legal advisors, we must live under the same philosophy. Adapting to connect and connecting to adapt.
Sveiki, mėly Kino pavasario žiūrovai. Sveikinu su jumis iš Kino pavasario studijos ir labai džiaugiuosi šiandien galėdama pasitikti vieną iš Kino pavasario svečių, žinoma prisijungiančio tik virtualiai, tačiau šiandien su mumis yra filmo BARBARų belaukiant režisierius Ciro Guerra, kuris prisijungė su mumis iš Kolumbijos. So welcome, Ciro. It's a great pleasure to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Before going into conversation about the film that Kino Pavasaris is presenting this year, I must tell that your films, The Birds of Passage and also Embrace of the Serpent, has been screened in Vilnius Film Festival before. And I believe that I will ask the question that many spectators in Lithuania would also ask you if they were in presence in a meeting with you. Is maybe your general preoccupation with the theme of colonialism, because it's sort of repeating from one film to another. And I wonder if you can tell a little bit about this general interest in and an urge to speak about this topic.
Yes, it's a theme that is essential to look at and to understand, I think. Because we are all in a way the children of colonialism. It has influenced who we are and our place in the world, and our modern society is the result of the relationship that each territory had with colonialism at every different time. So and people look around at the world and see all this and ask, why is there so much hate? Why is there so much inequality, so much division, so much hatred, so much violence? And I think it all comes down to that time. It is the birth of who we are, of where we stand, and most people are not aware of it and don't think about it very much. But yes, in order to speak about the modern world, we have to understand its roots, where it comes from.
And then maybe going towards the film that we're talking tonight, Waiting for Barbarians. This is an adaptation of a very famous novel by Goethe, by Nobel Prize winning writer. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about the initial beginning of this project. If it was you who decided to adapt this novel, and then connect it with the writer, or just tell us a little bit more about the background of this project. How did it all start?
Yes, the project began with producer Michael Fitzgerald more than 20 years ago. He started more than 30 years ago, actually. He wanted to do this adaptation of this novel, and he asked the writer J.M. Coetzee to adapt it himself, and so he has been working on this project for all these decades, and it was a very difficult project to make, to start. So there were several attempts at starting the project, and it wouldn't come together. And in 2017, I was approached by producer Michael Fitzgerald, and who asked me if I was interested in working in this adaptation. I had not read the novel at the time, but I read the novel, and I thought it was, of course, a masterpiece, a story that spoke profoundly to our time, and that had many layers, and that was also very visual. So I could see it as a film. It's a story that I could see working as a film. So I was very happy, very glad to accept. I know that the writer John Coetzee was a big fan of Embrace of the Serpent, and he was the one that suggested that I would do the adaptation. And when I read the script by Mr. Coetzee, I thought I was expecting it to be very literary, and what I encountered was the opposite. He had stripped the novel to its bare essence, and so it was a script that had space for a filmmaking vision to come in and interpret the novel, because it was very bare bones, it was a very hard adaptation of the novel, which was still faithful, but also left space for the creation of cinema. So yeah, it was everything came together at the right time after many years of the producer trying to bring it to life.
And when you joined, as you mentioned, the screenplay was already in place. I wonder, when you read it, was there a lot of changes that you've done, and if you were in close collaboration in making these changes, and also during the production, whether Coetzee was part of the whole process? Was he somehow involved in the production at all, or no?
Yes, of course there was. When I came on board as director, I had to make the script mine in a way. So I had my thoughts and comments and things that I wanted to make, and Mr. Coetzee was very generous in that sense, that he was very open and welcoming to all the suggestions that we made to make the translation from literature to cinema. So I actually brought moments back from the book that weren't in the script, but that I felt that were essential in the book. And Mr. Coetzee was present during the process. He was very open and generous. He was with us in Morocco during the pre-production, so he could see all the costumes, all the sets. But during the shooting, he was unavailable to be with us. But yeah, he was present throughout the whole process, and a very generous presence.
I'm quite curious to ask a question which might sound a little bit maybe daring, but I just rewatched the film today, and a crazy thought came to my mind, and that's the reason why I started this conversation, maybe with your own personal preoccupation with the theme of colonialism. I wonder if, when you read the novel and when you read the script, whether there was something personal that connected you with the main character of the book, with this magistrate that sort of I don't know, a person of justice, someone that is speaking out loud and raising these questions about the colonial mind and post-colonial troubles, and so on and so on.
Yes, of course. I think we are all a little bit of the magistrate. It's a universal character who thinks that he is doing the right thing, and who is a part of a system which is unjust. And then the story is the process of him realizing how profound this injustice is, and how much he is a part of it, even though he sees himself as being outside of this system, or being a force for good. How complex the relationship is, and how this imperialism and this colonialism is not just represented by the brutality of the soldiers and of the violence, but also how the intellectuals, how the people academics, the people who are not involved directly in the violence, are also the enablers of this system. This realization for the magistrate is a tragic realization. So he is a very compelling figure in that sense. But of course, I also identify with. I mean, when I read the novel, I kept coming back to the paramilitary forces in Colombia. That this right-wing paramilitary force that invaded villages and did torture and murder, and in the name of anti-communism, or in the name of progress, how the speech that they used to carry was so similar to the one that you heard from Colonel Joel. I think this is that's what makes a story universal. You can relate it to your own experience, no matter what time or what place you are in.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the process when the text became an image? Because previously you've been directing films that you wrote yourself, and then this is the first time that you actually direct and visualize someone else's story. Can you tell us a little bit more about the process? When you read the script, do you already know how it's going to look like, or do you have any special inspirations that inspired this film the way it looks?
When I make no difference when a story is coming from me, or when a story is coming from someone else, or a pre-existing or novel or an idea for someone else, because I try to be as objective as possible, which is of course more difficult when it's your story. But it's just a story that needs to be visualized. And when I'm reading a story and it puts images in my mind, I know that it's right for me to work on it. And when I was reading this novel, I could see it. It was very clear to me the way it needed to look, and it was very clear. It had a very strong sense of place. I could sense. I could even sense the light. I could imagine the locations, and I felt that that's what great writers do. They create images in your mind. And this is just a personal interpretation. That if you ask someone else to do it, it's going to be completely different. But yeah, this is a story that the novel put very strong, vivid images in my mind, and I could see it, and I could touch it, and I could smell it. I knew how I wanted it to look from the very beginning.
And I've read somewhere that this novel particularly is called as really difficult to adapt, because a lot of action is happening in the head of the main protagonist. It's also written as from the first person's point of view. It's being told from the magistrate side. And that requires also an incredibly strong actor that can actually depict this sort of, to carry the weight of the whole novel on itself. I wonder if you can tell a bit more when this great actor, Oscar-winning actor, Mark Rylance joined, whether it was your choice or it came from the producers, because I think that he's just incredible in this role.
Yes, I agree. I thought when I was reading the novel, I understood clearly that it was going to be, since in order to portray such a complex character, we were going to need an actor with great depth, with great profundity to portray him, and to bring what in the novel is an internal monologue to life. So the project actually starts when the producer saw Mark Rylance as in the film Bridge of Spies. He thought, I found him. He's wonderful. He's the one who has to play the character of the magistrate, which is a very complex character. And so when the producer comes to me and he says, I think the actor to play him is Mark Rylance, I was reading with Mark Rylance in mind, and I thought it was perfect. I honestly cannot think of another contemporary actor who could play this role. It had to be Mark, and what Mark brings to the film is the heart and the essence of the film, and his performance, I think, honors the words of Mr. Coetzee and brings them to life and to reality, and makes them relatable in all of their complexity.
Maybe just continuing about the cast, you had to invent and to visualize the unnamed empire, unnamed frontiers of the empire, and then you had to make choices visualizing these barbarians, which are, of not concrete origin, of not concrete era of the time, and so on and so on. Can you explain a bit about your casting choices? I'm not talking about the main empire's officers and colonels, but about the actual barbarians, because they are, if I'm not mistaken, Mongolian actors, right?
Yes, basically the novel is, we wanted to maintain the allegorical quality of the novel, so that it's not tied to a specific time or to a specific place, but so we wanted to create this landscape that is familiar, that reminds you of something that you have seen, but then again it's something like you haven't seen before. So we took elements from all the different empires, all the different colonialist nations, and we created this aesthetic that you think you can grasp, but it's not specific in that sense, because it's not about making a specific denouncement of a specific time. It's about speaking of how colonialism has traversed time and traversed all the nations. And for the barbarians, for visualizing the barbarians, we wanted to give this to tap into the notion of in the West we have of the barbarians, invaders that are coming from the East, like the barbarian invasions that brought down the Roman Empire, and all since that time there's this notion of barbarians coming, of the barbarians coming from the East, and that is at the root of a lot of the racism that we see today, and a lot of the prevention that Western people have throughout to Eastern peoples. So we thought that this idea of this unconscious idea, tapping into this unconscious idea of the barbarians, the barbarian invasions that were coming from the East, was the right way to visualize the barbarians in the novel.
And talking about the rest of the cast, including Johnny Depp and Robert Pattinson, I mean, in general, it's actually interesting to maybe to know your path from making things in Colombia and then starting to work with two Oscar-winning cinematographer, Oscar-winning actor, and other incredible team members. Can you tell a little bit more about how everyone joined, including also the cinematographer Chris Manges?
Yes, after the Embrace of the Serpent became very successful in the United States and in Europe and in many places around the world, I started getting offers to work in international films. And but yeah, it was, and I got many offers from Hollywood to work there, but it was difficult for me to find a story that was interesting to me and that I could relate to and that I found compelling and worth the process of so when Waiting for the Barbarians came along, it's a story that if I had known it first, I would have wanted to make by myself. You know, I was lucky that there was already the producer working on it, and there was work done already. But if it wasn't, it's a story that I would be interested in doing, even if I had to start it myself. And of course, during this process, I met a lot of actors, and I met and became friends with Robert Pattinson, who was very enthusiastic about the idea of doing a project together. So when I said that Waiting for the Barbarians was coming together, he was very interested in doing it. And then we heard from Johnny Depp that he was a big fan of the novel. He was a big fan of Coetzee, and he also had a great understanding of the novel and of the character. So when that possibility came, we thought it was perfect for a perfect character. We also liked the idea that that this is completely different than what audiences have seen from these actors. You know, it's very rare that they get to see them in these roles, and it's interesting for me to have the audience that has always seen these characters as heroes, to see them playing a different side. It's interesting and exciting, and it's also exciting for them as actors to offer something new to the audience. So yeah, it was, and Chris Menges was involved with the project for a long time too. He wanted to be the cinematographer of it since the 80s. He had read the novel around that time, and he always envisioned doing the novel. So when we didn't think that he was going to be able to do it because of different commitments that he had, but when the time came, he was able to do it, and I was very happy to work with Chris, who is a legend of cinematography, and who is one of the greatest cinematographers of all time. You know, one that all cinematographers around the world revere. And he was also a pleasure to work with. You know, the most gentle, humble man, and great artist. So it was for me, it was a learning experience to work with him, one with the whole crew. It was wonderful to have this crew that coming from the UK, the US, Italy, Morocco, Colombia. You know, all these people from all over the world coming together to tell a story. That's I think that's one of the wonderful things that cinema can do.
But for you as an artist, is your future plans or wishes, what you want to do is to work with the international teams, also on international topics, or you think that you're gonna go back to Colombia and then create a little bit more locally themed films?
For me, the ideal is to be able to work in both ways. There are many stories in Colombia that I want to tell, but there's also the possibility of working internationally with this kind of great artists that are inspiring to me and exciting to me. So if I am able to go back and forth between the two, that would be wonderful. But of course, you know, the stories that I'm most interested in telling are in Colombia. So I hope to be able to. But you know, Colombian cinema is in a very difficult position at the moment because of the pandemic. You know, it was a very weak industry, and now it's suffering. So I don't know if it's for a few years it's going to be a bit difficult to do films in Colombia. So yeah, we'll see. I was working on a project, but in Mexico, with the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, we had to shut down. So I had been working on that project for a year. So yeah, that, it's difficult. It's a difficult situation for the film industry everywhere.
We don't have much time left, but I would like to go back to the film again and then speak about this one particular, I think, critique that the film delivers is the critique towards those who have power in their hands, because the way the colonel is being depicted is like someone that has no clue of actually what he is facing. He is sort of afraid of the other, which is completely obscure, and then he is starting actions against something that is that does not even exist. Whereas the character of the magistrate, that's someone that understands and someone that is close and someone that is in peace with the local communities. They are sort of deprived of their power position. They're being sort of put into the margins of the imperial whole governmental system. I wonder if this critique towards the power was also something that you really intended to speak about.
Yes, one of the essential themes of the novel is how empires have the need to build enemies in order to install fear into the population and to make them and to control them. And we have seen in our history, even in this past decades, countries declaring war on enemies, that are simply depicted as terrorists, and they don't know anything about them. Also, the meaning of the other, of the barbarian. You have so many synonyms throughout history. You have the communists, you have the terrorists, you have the Islamists, the migrants, the people carrying the virus. Whatever it takes for governments to stay in power, and in order to stay in power, they have to constantly be creating enemies. And making the people afraid of them, and that's why you have so much xenophobia in the world. People being afraid of the other, of the one that they don't know anything about, but that they are convinced that is hostile, for the only reason that the government needs this hostile enemy in order to maintain itself in power.
Mm-hmm. And this maybe act of waiting and being afraid of something that is possibly coming, but not sure whether it's coming and when it's coming. It's a situation of a lot of tension. But then your film has this incredible silence, which even though there's a lot of violence on the screen, but then again, the general maybe tone of the film is somehow peaceful. I wonder if you can explain a little bit about this approach, how you created this somehow, I don't know, silent atmosphere of the waiting.
Yeah, you said it. It's this tense calm that is happening when you're waiting for something to come and you don't know what's coming. So this silence was important, and it's a silence that is growing throughout the film. At the beginning of the film, this location is bustling with life, and there's activity, and then as the film goes on, it becomes more and more dead and more silent, because that's what happens when you allow fear to take over. It sort of undermines life, and you come to a point where there is no noise, there is no life, there is only silence and waiting. And people are shocked by this because of an English film, with this kind of actors. We are used to films being very noisy, very full of bombastic sound effects, and a huge soundtrack all the time. So when people are confronted with this kind of silence in a film, Some people are very shocked by it or very turned off by it, but it was essential to the story. It's there I read it in the novel, and I wanted it to be translated into the cinema.
Mm-hmm. When Mr. Coetzee saw the film, was he I don't know, surprised or pleased of what he's saying? What was his reactions?
Yeah, he was very positive. He was very happy with the finished film. He was especially happy with Mark Rylance's performance. He felt that he had managed to convey all the complexity of the character, which was his main concern. Are we going to be able to convey all this complex monologue on the screen? And he felt that Mark's performance was faithful to it. And yes, he was very, very pleased with the final result of the film. And yeah, we've had a very good relationship with him. So we're very happy with his reaction.
And maybe for the end, you could. You mentioned that now a lot of film works, a lot of productions has been stopped in Colombia and also around the world. But I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about what you're working on at the moment.
I was working on a project about the conquest of Mexico, and it was a big project with Amazon. But yeah, we were working on it for a year, and then it had to be stopped. We spent several months in Mexico waiting to see if it was possible to restart it, but the conditions of shooting, with the protocols of shooting that are necessary for the pandemic, made this particular project impossible. So it was not possible, and it was very sad because it was a great project that we had dreamed about for a long time. And so I'm right now starting to develop two scripts. One that takes place in Colombia, one that takes place outside, and we'll see which one will be able to put together the financing and the production, because like I said, it's a tricky moment now. But yeah, hopefully within a couple of years we'll be able to offer something new to the audience.
I really hope that soon everything is going to be back to normal, and then you will be able to continue to work, because I believe it's not only me, but there's a lot of fans of your work in Lithuania, and we're going to be really impatiently waiting for your upcoming films. And then hopefully maybe you're going to have a chance to join us in person in physical event next year. So thank you for your time.
I would love to thank you to the festival for showing this film and my previous films. And yes, I would look forward to the opportunity of visiting Lithuania as soon as possible.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much, Ciro.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you familiar with these parts of the frontier?
Not with this part. Not yet.
There is an episode of hysteria about the barbarians.
I have orders to obey. I am speaking of particular situations where I am probing for the truth. Since all is not well here, I expect further measures will be taken.
Patrols are conducting operations to correct the situation that you've allowed to develop.
What did they do to you? You want me to take you back to your family? The barbarians whom you are chasing. This is their land. They know every inch of it. You do not. Did you really say that there will be a great war against the Empire?
Pain is truth. That is how you get it. You have no idea how tiresome your behavior is.
You are an obscene torturer.
We have set procedures ready to go.
You've been treasonously consorting with the enemy.
Get out! I want these people out of here!
We will end these troubles. We will put down the enemy. And that will be the end of it.